Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, Dashos. Thank you for your time and energy this morning. I'd like to start by commending CBS for the GNH for Business. In September 2015, all 193 member states of the United Nations adopted a plan for achieving a better future for all, laying out a path over the next 15 years to end extreme poverty, fight inequality and injustice, and protect our climate. At the heart of Agenda 2030 are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which Ms. Daly spoke about this morning. The new global goals result from a process that was fully inclusive, with governments, including business, civil society, and citizens from the outset. We are all in agreement on where the world needs to go. Fulfilling these ambitions will take an unprecedented effort by all sectors of society, and business has a critical role to play in this process. The Sustainable Development Goals and GNH Principles are fully aligned, and that's at the heart of this presentation today, as we try to find better ways to marry responsible business with gross national happiness and the Sustainable Development Goals. In terms of sustainability and business, we have the symbol here of the challenges that we are facing as a world in balancing the needs of people and the needs of business. What we need to constantly search for is the sweet spot where we find that balance between the needs of the world, the planet, and of business. Since September 2015, when we arrived at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, many lessons have been learned about the best ways to start to marry the business with the SDGs. And GNH can learn from this SDG experience. For example, we know that with respect to advancing the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we're going to require an annual investment across the planet of $4 trillion. And some of the biggest investments will be required on climate change mitigation, power, and transport. And the climate change mitigation one is a vital one, not just for the planet, but especially for Bhutan, because climate change is right at the heart of the challenges of this society. The Prime Minister, back in September in New York at the General Assembly, spoke about how climate change is going to be one of the biggest challenges that this country is going to be facing in the foreseeable future. When we talk about the opportunities and the challenges around working with business, we need to be constantly mindful of what the business community can bring to the table. They bring such great strengths in terms of innovation and great strengths in terms of technology. And I would like to commend these two areas to those business colleagues who are with us today as areas where we need to be especially focused on as we try to bring these development sectors together, the public sector and the business. We know that when it comes to the resources that are impacting developing countries today, the vast majority are coming from the private sector. On average, business accounts for 60% of GDP, 80% of capital flows, and 90% of jobs. Many of us know, of course, that here in Bhutan, the public sector is quite large. But one of the questions many of us have is, will the public sector be big enough to take care of the challenges around youth unemployment? And one of the suggestions that I would make to the colleagues here today is that while the public sector can grow somewhat over the coming years, in terms of really grappling with the challenges of youth unemployment, we need to find ways to promote the private sector. When I spoke about earlier on finding the sweet spot between the public sector and business opportunities and the business sector, we need to be mindful of those areas where research shows that the public sector, the business sector themselves believes that there can be opportunities. And those are around climate action, around decent work. It's the top right-hand quadrant of the chart. Decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, climate action, and responsible consumption. Those are the areas where the business community believe themselves that they can be focused, but also there can be some opportunities for them to grow their own business. So it can create what I would call win-win opportunities. And when I speak about a sweet spot for business, working in a sustainable way, I'm looking for those type of opportunities which are good for the planet, good for the country, but good for business as well. So, we learned over the last few days that the work that CBS have started with the Royal Government of Bhutan is going to culminate in a deeper analysis, in deeper policy work, leading into a February document where the Royal Government of Bhutan is going to actively work in the areas around business and GNH. And I would wish to propose to the audience today 6 specific areas for your consideration. The first one is around the need to create an equitable work conditions. Today, approximately 8% of executive positions are filled by women. This is a concern for many people who feel the need to have women working together with men in leading companies. It's a specific target that raises concerns when you see that only 8% of executive positions in this country are held by women. That's something where the United Nations would wish to work with both business leaders and the Royal Government of Bhutan to raise that number. And we can give ourselves a target date by which we can achieve those numbers. The second area is we need to strengthen the platform between the public and the private dialogue. For example, we need more business leaders working and developing discussions with Gross National Happiness and the CBS. We need more business leaders in this conference so that we can truly have a dialogue of equals. As part of strengthening the platform between the public and the private, we should consider supporting business doing what are called environmental audits. The value and benefit of an environmental audit is that it will bring down the cost of businesses the cost of doing business within the country, which will then make the business opportunities within the country more efficient and more effective, which can lead to greater job growth. The third area that I wish to speak to is provide an environment for impact investment. What do I mean by impact investment? These are investments made into companies, organizations, and funds with the intention to generate a measurable social and environmental impact alongside a financial return. The UN in Mongolia has supported the establishment of what is called a Green Credit Fund, which was initiated by the Mongolia Bankers Association, which represents private banks in Mongolia. The fund incorporates public and private management strategies to support activities that have positive effects on the environment and society. I would have to say that the Royal Government of Bhutan is already moving in the right direction, and we saw this back in April of this year when the RGOB came through with what is called Fiscal Incentives 2016. These include tax incentives to industries adopting modern environmental friendly technologies and tax incentives for waste management and recycling industries. The next one is number 4. We need to stimulate and support small and cottage enterprise development through access to relevant information, international networks of expertise, and finance, including impact investors and communications channels to promote success stories and disseminate lessons learned. As one of the examples the UN has been working on here in Bhutan is what is called Techstars Startup Weekend, which took place in Phuntsholing back in October. This was a weekend, it's a 54-hour weekend event during which ideas for new startups, entrepreneurial ideas are pitched. And it enables anyone to turn ideas into reality and become entrepreneurs. It's creating and strengthening the culture of entrepreneurship within the country. The next idea is we need to promote social entrepreneurship. And from my perspective, this is very similar to the points, Caroline, you made this morning with regard to the work you have been doing in Myanmar. An example that we are doing here in Bhutan is we are working with the YDF and the Global Environment Facility on waste recycling. This program gives young people a second chance of life, and it also reduces waste paper. This innovative program produces egg trays from waste paper and provides gainful employment to young people, which is supported by the UN and the GEF Small Grants Program. The waste recycling program helps young people get back on their feet. It also recycles 100 tons of waste paper and carton boxes a year that would otherwise pollute Bhutan's pristine rivers and forests. It also reduces Bhutan's import bill.
We have about
Finally,
2 minutes, 10 seconds, please.
Finally, we need to look at what is called the corporate social responsibility legislation here in Bhutan and how it is applied in reality. It is not clear how these funds within companies is currently being utilized. And we need to establish how the private sector engages in CSR and what are the best practices that can be applied with the money coming from CSR. My conclusion. As I was thinking about this presentation today, I was realizing that, and I was listening to the different colleagues, we need to find ways to reach out to the business community and appreciate their values. Of course, we have our own values from when I come from the public sector, be it government or the United Nations. But we also need to be aware of our disadvantages. Are we innovative enough in the public sector, in the United Nations? Do we incentivize risk-taking? Do we learn from the mistakes that we make? Can we learn faster from the mistakes that we make? These are some of the advantages and values that the business community have. And coming from the public sector, coming from the international public sector, I believe if we are truly to find a way to bring the business community into a closer relationship with the public sector, we need to be able to appreciate the strengths of business. Thank you very much.